If you've been dying to own a Royal Oak, will buying the Zenith Defy Skyline satisfy that craving? There's one major difference between these two watches that goes well beyond the technical specifications and finishing, and that's the fact that one of these you can actually walk into an AD and buy. The other, not so much. Hey guys, welcome back to the Shreve Crump & Low YouTube channel. I'm your host, Jack Tyler, and in this video we're going to be taking a look at one of the hottest new releases from Zenith, the Defy Skyline. Not only do I want to share some of my insights in what it's actually like to handle and wear this watch, but I also brought along my personal trusty Audemars Piguet Royal Oak for a bit of a comparison, because when you look at these two watches on the surface, they seem kind of similar. Now, of course, there's no winner or loser when you're comparing these two integrated steel sports watches. Both are equally amazing in their own way, and we just want to take the time to show you some of the similarities and some of the differences if you're considering buying one over the other. Now, before we jump into the review, I want to say a huge thank you off the bat to our 500 plus subscribers. We'd love to hear from you guys, so please leave a comment below, and if you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to subscribe if you want to stay up to date on all the latest watch content from Shreve Crump & Low. Let's just go ahead and address the elephant in the room. It's obvious that these watches share a similar design language. To the average person, they probably look identical, and at the very least would lead you to raise an eyebrow as to thinking which came before the other. Both have non-circular geometric bezels, they have textured dials, they share a similar, somewhat sporty industrial look, and of course have their trademark integrated bracelets. But that's where the similarities start to fade if you do what I think we all should, which is to look at each one in a bubble. We are so quick in the watch community to jump to the conclusion that a new watch is merely a copy of one of the untouchable items that, quite frankly, we have created, whether it's a new diver compared to a sub or an integrated bracelet sports watch compared to the Royal Oak or Nautilus. The closer we look at these two watches, the more the differences start to emerge. In fact, I'd go so far to say if you really spend some time with each one of these individually on your wrist, that they are different experiences entirely. Quick history lesson, folks. The Skyline's design is based on the Zenith A3642, and its iconic geometric bezel actually was released 3 years before Gerald Genta's masterpiece, the Royal Oak. This undoubtedly begs the question that will probably remain unanswered, but was it perhaps Genta that was inspired by the Defy? It's funny to me that we tend to assume that just because one design is much more popular or in demand, that it is by default the original. Just some food for thought. Now, before we compare these two, let's get into some of the basic specs. The Zenith Skyline measures at 41 millimeters in diameter with a case thickness of 12 millimeters. The Royal Oak also measures at 41 millimeters, but the diameter is a much slimmer 10.1 millimeters thick. The difference may sound minute when you hear it, but it actually does change a lot about how these two watches wear on the wrist. You might think that for nearly $50,000 on the secondary market, or even at the $15,000 difference at the traditional retail price point, you might be getting a lot more technically advanced movement from the Audemars Piguet. However, if we set finishing aside, which to many is objectively more important than the performance aspect, the Zenith contains a much more advanced movement. The Audemars Piguet caliber 4302, which powers the 15400, is a standard time and date movement that, to its credit, is handsomely decorated and to a standard that we would absolutely come to expect from AP. However, under the hood of the Zenith, we have a much newer caliber, the Primero 3620. This stripped-down version of their chronograph caliber beats at 36,000 vibrations per hour and allows Zenith the ability to add a 1/10 of a second counter instead of the traditional sweeping or small seconds. In my opinion, it adds a ton of character to this watch that is uniquely Zenith. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and throw on both of these watches so that you can get a side-by-side comparison of how they wear on my 6.5-inch wrist. I gotta say that one of the standout features on both of these watches are the bracelets, which I gotta admit are really comfortable. When talking about the bracelets, this is one of the areas that the Royal Oak definitely takes the cake on in terms of finishing. On average, it can take a craftsman at the Audemars Piguet manufacturer over 20 hours to finally brush, polish, and bevel the iconic Royal Oak bracelet. Now look, the Skyline is no slouch in comparison, and it's solid in its construction, but it's obviously machine finished, especially when you have both pieces in hand. However, one feature that the Zenith has over the Royal Oak, in my opinion, is the quick change system for the bracelets, which makes it easy to switch out a rubber strap for the traditional steel bracelet if you want to. And as someone who loves to change their straps up often, I think that this is a real standout feature, and I wish that more watch brands were doing it. Now that we've gone over some of the basic specs, let's get back to the real question at hand. Will the Zenith Skyline satisfy the craving for owning a royal oak? Now, obviously, that's a personal one, but for me at least, the short answer is yes. But let's talk about some of the reasons why. As a very proud royal oak owner, I can say that there are a few watches that compare, if we're talking about buying one at retail. But in this wild and turbulent world of watches that we live in, the secondary prices on the royal oak have gone insane, and it makes an already essentially inaccessible watch even more exclusive. Look, I don't want you guys to hate me, but I was really lucky to actually get my royal oak at retail a few years back. But if it had not been for that case, and I had to buy one now on the secondary market, I can assuredly tell you that the Zenith would look a lot more attractive. Another factor for my personal watch buying decisions, especially currently, has to do with getting a feel for the brands as a whole. Now, compared to AP, in my opinion, Zenith has done a lot more to cater to the true fans of the brand, whereas AP, seemingly for better or for worse, has kind of become a one-trick pony. Zenith has not only done a masterful job in their revival line and keeping a brilliant through line of highlighting their history, but it's also pushing the boundaries with materials, with construction, with techniques in watchmaking, and I think that they are really doing something special, which is actually listening to their customers and what they want, hence the release of the Skyline. In the wake of all the hype these days, some brands have ironically become more and more tone deaf, which I think is kind of funny because with the advent of social media, the customer is much closer than ever before to the manufacturer. So when AP released the Black Panther, you kind of have to scratch your head a little bit. Now, if you're like me, $50,000 is a lot of money, especially if you like a lot of the features of the Zenith as is. So in conclusion, given today's market at the retail and the secondary level, I really feel like the Defy is a fantastic option for a collector who wants to add a chic and sporty integrated bracelet piece to their collection. It's a watch that stands on its own 2 feet with a legitimate historical lineage that ironically predates the royal oak, and I think that that fact alone is going to sway a lot of buyers to consider it who may have initially shrugged it off at launch. The royal oak is the royal oak is the royal oak. It's never going to change. It's an icon for a reason, and undoubtedly if you're lucky enough to get one at retail, it's also a great investment. But with the state of the current market, you have to ask yourself, is a potentially multi-year wait or a multi-thousand difference in price worth it? Simply put, the Defy and the Royal Oak are different watches, and that's a good thing that we should be thankful for. I think it's valuable for us all to ask the personal question of, are we just trying to get the watch that we can't have because we feel like we should, or are we really being true to ourselves about the objective of what we actually want? Will buying the Defy satisfy wanting to own the Royal Oak? That's something that you're going to have to conclude on your own, but we invite you to do a little soul searching in the process. Alright, well, we certainly hope that you've enjoyed this video, and if you're interested in one of these two watches, we hope that it's made your decision just a little bit easier. Now, if you're interested in the Zenith Defy, Shreve Crump & Lowe is Boston's only authorized dealer for Zenith watches, and we also carry their entire collection, so if you want to see more, please head over to our website, shrevecrumpandlowe.com. Once again, do us a big favor and go ahead and hit that subscribe button below so we can keep making more watch content for you, and as always, thanks for spending a little time with us today.